Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, ladies, first off, thank you for being so vulnerable, like right off the bat, without even really having any problem. Just like, and here's what I'm struggling with. I will just say that I have struggled with all of those things over the years, and I've been a public speaker for 25 plus years. And each piece, like I hear, I'm like, yep, 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 that's been a hurdle. And my very first time speaking, I went up and it was a how-to demonstration, and I was shaking so bad I was dropping my props. And I remember going back to my seat and looking up at the ceiling, just willing my tears to stay in my eyes and not go down my face. And that became my story for the rest of my life. It was just on record of, you're not good at this. You're not good at this. And it wasn't until I was forced to do a ton of presentations when I got into my corporate life that, you know, much like Brussels sprouts, my ability to turn out presentation was like, and you're going to go do this, and you're going to go speak globally, and we're going to send you to Guatemala, and now we're going to send you here. And it was like, oh, I had no choice but to step onto that stage and step into that moment. But as my career progressed, it became like in the executive round at Intuit, where I was presenting probably 5 to 6 times a week to different groups, externally and internally. So building that process of being able to be really succinct and have like the right message for the right audience became a craft. And that is what I'm going to show you today, is like this easy formula to kind of just be really succinct. So when you know the audience, when you know yourself, when you know the right message, and it's just how to boil it all down and put it together. So when you guys are talking about all of this, like Shannon says, I want to be more succinct. I got you, Shannon. When it talks about confidence, going in and actually knowing what you're going to say and being very prepared actually helps in that confidence realm, because you are so focused on your mission and how you want to help serve the audience. The thing about all of us is that we have all of this experience and knowledge and wisdom to share, that it's like Megan said, boiling that all down, like boiling the ocean and going, all right, what out of all of this is going to be the most helpful? And yes, absolutely, Megan, like sending emails afterwards, totally fine. Here's some appendix stuff that I put in. That's totally fine too. But when we step back and we think about that 50-minute conversation, having this formula that gives you that gut check of, is this the right thing? Am I still hitting the right note of what I want to do here? That becomes a muscle that we have to practice. And I will tell you, this isn't easy at first. It can be, but then it's like working anything. You know, anything in life that you do for the first time is like, oh, some of my clients are like, this is really hard. And then by the 5th time they do it, they're like, oh my God, I could do this in my sleep. I'm like, yes, you can. And once you build that practice in, then it becomes like, I got this. I got this. Oh, you want me to do a presentation in a couple of days? Sure. I'm in. I don't recommend that because you want to rehearse, but you have the capability of doing so. In theater, we don't go in without a plan. Like before the first day of rehearsal with our cast, we have already spent months figuring out the costumes, the set, the lighting design, all of the elements. We have curated an experience for our audience. And then we bring in the talent and start rehearsing it. It's very much the same, of building a plan before you move into the deck part of the experience and the visual moments that you have. Because if you don't have a plan, and if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter what path you take people on, because then it's the shotgun approach of like, oh, and you should know this, and oh, you should know this. And you know how when you're presenting and you think of another story on the spot, you're like, oh, that's really good, I should say this. And then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I have 10 more slides and I have 2 minutes. It's like, panic, panic, skip, skip, skip. That also adds a panic into the audience, right? I have seen some of the most professional speakers go, oh, we don't have time for this, so I have to skip these slides. And then the audience thinks, wait, what am I missing? What are you telling me? Like, what do I need to know? Like they just freak out. So we don't want that. In our Venn diagram of putting together a presentation, it always starts with you. It starts with the knowledge that you have, the wisdom that you want to share, the stories that will bring people in. But it starts with what brings you joy, what lights you up in life that you just feel the urge to share. And I would love for all of you to grab a writing utensil of some sort and some paper if you don't already have it next to you, because we're going to do a little bit of a working session today.
Sorry.
Definitely no need to apologize. Clear your throat, girl. We're going to brainstorm on ourselves for a moment. And what a good way to start a Friday of just thinking about the gifts that you have to share. Our first question for you is, what do your peers ask for your opinion on? Like, what do they come to you and go, oh, can you help me with this? Or do you know about this? And I'm going to give you 60 seconds to just brainstorm that. Give 10 more seconds. Go to the next question. What could you speak about for an hour without any prep? And this doesn't just have to be in business. This could be your hobbies. This could be whatever just delights you on top of the lovely work that you do. Include both if you could. Yep, 10 more seconds on that one. Bye. All right, go ahead and finish that last thought. I love that I see so many heads down writing so much on that one. I was like, oh. If any of you could just type in chat real quick what you came up with for either one, like the things that your peers ask for your expert opinion on, or something that you could talk about for hours without prep. Carla, accounting technology and time management. Both of those, Carla. All right. I love it. Time management is definitely, obviously, you know, from me being at T-Sheets, that was my gig. Love that topic for both. How to have confidence in negotiations. Oh my gosh. Madeline, I love it. I love. That is such a new thing all around the world, I'm telling you. Nexus, basis, software process, implementation, SALT. Ugh, Megan. Yeah, sales tax. You go, girl. Wonderful. Cecily, talk about hours without prep. Grief, trauma, me too, death, love, acceptance, grace. Cecily. Wow. Foreign tax. Monica. Amazing. How to choose clients and when to say goodbye. All right, I expect to see all of these topics out in the world. These are phenomenal topics, ladies. There's no reason we cannot get the mic to you to be able to do these risk management, communication strategies with stakeholders. All right, I have to stop paying attention to the chat because you're getting me too excited. For us, that Venn diagram. So we have this part right now. Obviously, there's a ton more questions we could ask. There is, sometimes I have my clients do a lifetime journey and they can start at any point of their life of when they want to do that. And then they write both the highest highs and the lowest lows on that timeline. And that's where we start finding our stories and start seeing our connections that of repeated ahas, because it's always in those high moments that we have a really good aha of finally accomplishing something where we can share a story, or those really low moments where we learned a lesson that we needed to learn. And those become our pivotal points in life and our stories that we can share moving forward that help us communicate our message. With that one side of the Venn diagram, we have the other side, which is the audience. And the audience to me, I was doing QuickBooks Connect. I booked speakers for years. And I will tell you, I had only been asked once out of the 8 years or so that I was booking speakers by Melissa Durabian. I don't know if you guys know who Melissa Durabian is. She's from the Food Network. I see a couple nods. So she asked me, she goes, well, Misty, like, what does the audience need to hear? Like, what are they struggling with? I had never had a speaker ask me that, which was unbelievable, because of course you want to know what the audience needs, right? To make sure that you're meeting their biggest challenges. And that's one of the reasons Madeline did, before we even chose this topic, she did a tweet and some emails asking where everybody was struggling. And then she came to me and said, all right, here's what we're seeing. And then I also asked her, obviously at the beginning of the hour, I'm like, can you just ask this so I can like make sure throughout we're kind of tackling some of the things. And it could be as easy as that in the moment. But if you want to really prepare, I have done, like, AICPA asked me to come in to speak to different groups of executives, and I will send them a survey first and say, hey, can you have them fill out this survey? And these are the questions that I send. So feel free to steal, and we call it leverage. The questions for whatever program or any opportunity that you're doing. If you're speaking to your own audience and you start peppering these questions in social media just so you find out, they will help you kind of understand what is going to be the best message that you have that will then fit their needs as well. So these are the demographics. So definitely write these down. This is being recorded, but there's something about that mind-body connection of memorization when you actually physically write. When we talk about what are they like and why are they attending, it's more around who the audience is. I have found that I do very heavy female imagery, and I've only had one guy question me on it. And he was like, I noticed you do a lot of females in your decks. And I'm like, yep. And I go, how does that make you feel? And he said, well, I realized how little I have of female imagery in my own decks. It's like, yeah. So when you think about the experience that you want to curate and knowing who they are is going to be more where they are in business. Are they a corporate executive? Are they an entrepreneur? What do they like? What are their biggest struggles? You're going to be talking about all of those things. When you think about the next questions, their challenges. What are their challenges within the topic? So notice Madeline was very specific, like what are your challenges in public speaking? So when you talk about your topics of what is your biggest challenge with salt? What is your biggest challenge with grief? And I forget already who said the grief thing, but I was telling Madeline earlier, I'm struggling because I had a niece commit suicide and yesterday was the anniversary of it. Well, I could use that topic. Please put that out in the world. But there's a lot of different challenges that you can just ask, but be specific on your topic of choice that you want to deliver. This question is actually from Melissa. She said, Misty, how can I best serve them? And I was like, what do you mean? How can you best serve them? She goes, well, if it was just one thing that I could help them have an aha about, what would that be? And I was like, luckily I had a bunch of research, so I knew. But understanding like what their biggest moment is. So taking all of those challenges, you might get a list. You might get 10 or 15 things that you cannot solve in that 50 minutes. But if you knew there was one way to help them win, then you can focus on that one way to help them win. One of my clients is teaching at Scaling New Heights in a few weeks, and she sent me her deck, and she had a 20-step process that she was teaching in 50 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're going to overwhelm them. I see you, Cecily. I see you laughing. She's like, yeah, exactly. I was like, can we narrow this down to three steps? Because otherwise, all of that information that you give them can paralyze somebody into taking action because they realize, oh, this is too daunting to try to do. This is really, I don't have the bandwidth for this right now. So when we narrow it down to just a few things, then it becomes a little bit easier to tackle for everyone. And if the action is an accelerated outline, which we are going to do, then that is what we will do. I am going to stop sharing because I am going to drop the handout into chat. And you guys can let me know if you see it. How many of you have already like sent out surveys to people that you are speaking to? Is it a common practice for most of you? I see a couple nods. I see some maybe not. Oh, Madeline, it doesn't have capability to, I'm going to send it to you email real quick because it's only lets Dropbox things be added. So if you can send this out to my lovely ladies.
Yep, if you flip it to me, I'll email it to the group.
Yep.
Awesome.
Has no subject line, so all yours. All right. Okay. The first thing on the accelerated outline, and I will tell you, this can be used no matter what you're doing. It can be used for a keynote. It can be used for a presentation to a client. It can be used for a breakout session at a conference. It can be used for a team meeting. Like this accelerated outline, I have executives that say, oh, like when my executives ask me a question, I go to this accelerated outline and use it to respond to them. And I'm like, oh, okay. I love it. And when I discovered this process, I geeked out and I was like, oh, this makes things so much easier. And we all know once we have a process for something, it's just like, oh, yay, we can rinse and repeat and just move forward. The first thing in the accelerated outline is, I know we all have heard starting with the end in mind, but when we're talking about the accelerated outline, the question is, what, excuse me, Cecily, it passed to me. What does my audience need to accomplish? And what should they be able to do at the end of our time together? What is the one thing that my audience needs to accomplish? And what should they be able to do after our time together? The next is, what are the 3 things that will get them there? And how do I want them to feel? And I tell you, for me, my brand, I am typically a super joyous human being. And I will tell you, the starting of this presentation that I was practicing, I changed it because I was like, ooh, the how do you want them to feel? It wasn't right. And I'll share with you what I was going to start with. I thought it was funny, but I was like, oh, that might be a little negative. I thought, okay, I'm going to start by saying every woman I have ever met is full of it. Full of wisdom, full of this, full of ideas and knowledge that they need to share. But I was like, oh, that might start on a really negative note. And I'm going, oh, that's not very nice, Misty. So these become my gut check questions of what is the one thing I need them to know and be able to do by the end of it. The reason why it's 3 and only 3 is there's actually, I'm sure you guys have heard the rule of 3. Right? It's the rule of 3 in comedy, the 1, 2, 3 punch in comedy. But it actually was a Greek philosopher that considered 3 the perfect number of harmony and wisdom and understanding. And that 3 helps us identify a pattern. If you have 2, it's not enough for a pattern. So 3 is that magic number that all of a sudden creates this pattern for an audience. And then it's 3 is the maximum items that most people can remember. So if you're giving them big strategies, like they can remember 3, but once you start adding 4 and 5 and 6, it's like they have to then figure out in their brain which one they're going to keep for that short-term memory. And then long-term memory becomes when they put things into practice. So know that a presentation is all just tapping into our short-term memory, right? And the last is this signal process. The signal process in our mind that says, hey, this is different than the status quo. Like we go 1 item, 2 item, we feel comfortable. 3 is like a disruption moment of like, it wakes you up. And there's something about the brain signaling that then goes, oh, this is something I need to remember, 1, 2, and 3. So our 3 for today is right. The U, excuse me. don't know how that echo on your side sounded, but 3 is you and what you bring to the table, the audience and what they need in that Venn diagram, and then figuring out the accelerated outline. If we wanted to do another example, we had a few women talk about anxiety, right? And being anxious before we speak. So if it was my one thing I want the audience to be able to do, it is say to create a plan for public speaking anxiety. So that would become my goal and objective. And I will say, I'll write on my outline at the top, the audience will be able to create a plan for overcoming public speaking anxiety. And then I'll constantly look at that as I'm adding my 3, like, does this help them with my goal? My 1, 2, 3, help them with a goal. So I came up with the 3 things to get them there. 1 would be identifying where the source of anxiety is coming from. Is it mental? Is it physical? All of those things would be put under there of identifying the source. Number 2 would be strategies to combat anxiety. And it's exercise and all of these different techniques that we can do to overcome that. And then creating their go-to plan. But you see how those all ladder up to that main goal, right? That they're big bucket items. When we add information, I don't know if you guys have seen, if you lovely ladies have seen like story sell, right? Have you ever heard that? Oh, story sell, story sell. Recent research actually has it split between stories and data. And I've always been a big proponent of having data in your information too, because anytime you add a third-party voice to the mix, means that it's not just my ideas and information over here. It's not just my opinion, but it is fact-based, especially depending on the audience that you're speaking to. If they're highly analytical, then the more data that you want to put in there. Executives tend to be more analytical. So when we're talking about knowing who your audience is, if they are more on the creative side and like artists and things like that, you know that stories are going to be better for that type of audience. If you know they are more analytical, then you're going to move towards really having some data to back you up. Madeline, were you able to put the
email hasn't come through. I keep searching my drafts in my inbox.
No worries. Ladies, all it is like a piece of paper with some things for you to write this on your own. So if you get it afterwards, just know you can practice on that piece of just writing things down and getting you through your process.
Yeah, I'll share it in Slack after this session for sure.
Perfect, perfect. For speaking in general, typically there are a few different structures of methods. So we have this accelerated outline and we're going to do a little practice on it in a few minutes. But I wanted you to know, like when you do the accelerated outline, there are structures that you can kind of lean into. And they are from big picture of like, you're taking a really big concept for the audience. And those 3 steps are narrowing down the process for them and really digging into the how. Or you can do the opposite and you can do, hey, here's all of the small steps to get you to this big part of a process. So it's just inverting the funnel. The other one, the last one, is logical steps. Like you think about the process of something. For my logical steps on the anxiety, I couldn't go, like I wouldn't want to start with like, hey, let's create a plan before we identify where the anxiety is and before we know how to solve the anxiety. So there's this logical step that you have to take. And so when you're looking at your 3 items of what do they need to be able to accomplish this big goal, is there a process that makes sense? Are you going from a big item to a small item? Are you doing it in logical order where you're like, yeah, they should tackle this before the next piece? Can you give me a thumbs up or a heart if that makes sense? I see a couple nods. I see some glazed over eyes. Not sure. Yay, yay. All right, I see some thumbs up. All right. I wanted to break you up in groups, but I'm going to do this individually for now. It'll work the same because this does not have groups on it. So I would love for you to write an accelerated outline. This doesn't have to be difficult, I promise. So you're going to write your goal line at the top. For our option 1, you can do my favorite travel destination is this. Here are the 3 reasons why. Like if I was doing it, it would be Greece. And it's because the people, the culture, and the history. But you see how those are bigger bucket items, so you can then have sub items underneath that. So you can pick your favorite travel destination and do like a 15-second accelerated outline. Or you can choose option 2 for some of your lovely topics that you put into chat of, here's what I can talk about for an hour, and pick one of your topics and just brainstorm real quick on, hey, what is the one thing I would love my audience to be able to do after this session? It's this. And what are the 3 things that would get them there? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write that. And then I will ask for volunteers to share their accelerated outline that I am going to give you 2 minutes starting now. All right. How did you all do? Was it like panic moment at all? Hopefully not too much. Madeline, I will let you select the lovely women to share.
Okay.
Say whoever's birthday is the closest to today's date. But
I'm gonna go with Vanessa first. Will you share?
Okay. I'm always extra nervous when I'm the first to speak. So, okay. So one thing that I thought that I would go with the audience should know is preparation to identify if they have a foreign tax compliance requirement. Then that can be quite daunting because there's a lot of information out there, and then the penalties of non-compliance is really high. So I would talk a little bit about that. And then the three things I would say that they can get to be compliant are: one is it gives them information about what is reportable and what is not reportable. So we could silo, and take all of the scattered information and put it, together. Second, I would give them tools like worksheet and data and information as far as how they can go about gathering the data that needs to be reported. And three, I would give them a macro level view about how I would, or at my firm, we would collate that data and bring about how to report that in a possibly, all of that language cannot be simplified, and I would try to simplify it as much as possible and try to make it, less scary for them. And that's what I wrote down. Yeah.
my feedback on that is fantastic.
Thank
Like
you.
really, that was a really good through line, and the logical steps that takes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And sometimes I think when people do this outline, they get too narrow on their three. So then it's like, oh, you're already telling me the three things that I just need to go do it now, versus having big bucket items that you can then stretch out and tell a story about and share some data and the information. Really good. Fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that was in 2 minutes. You just created an outline for a presentation.
Thank you.
Love it. We have enough time to maybe do 2 more. Madeline?
Carla, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I chose the vacation option. Always, anytime I can get a break from work stuff, that's pretty cool. Galveston, I'm in Texas. So Galveston is one of my favorite getaways. I originally went there for the beach, of course, but the 3 points that I would definitely list and be able to I love to talk anyway, so I'd be able to build on is that it's historic and the historical aspect of it. Of course, the beach and the beach scene. And really what I have fallen in love with there is the shopping. It's got amazing shopping, boutique shopping.
I love this.
I'm glad there's no men in our session because they really wouldn't get that.
That's not, well, it would, if it was men, I love that point, Carla. If it was men in your session, then it's like, they might like shopping too. And so sprinkle in some for them, or say, hey, here's some hot tips to make your wife super happy if she's into shopping. So it's all right. You can tweak and adjust for the audience.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'd play around with it. They would be good at carrying the bags and sitting. They'll enjoy sitting on the benches outside and people watching. It's awesome. That's what my guys do.
Oh, so you just have to add it. But I love that you thought about the audience of like,
Yes.
okay, if it was women, I would say this. If it's men, I might tweak and adjust. Like, great thinking about your Venn diagram. Fantastic.
Let's see. Cecily, will you go next? There's no way.
I didn't really, I got a little confused and
Okay.
then
That's good. This is a workshop. This is a workshop of a coaching for us to help you through it. So
Okay.
where did you hit a hurdle?
Well, so I need to look at what I'm doing like over and over again, but then the screen disappeared. So I kind of lost track of like what the actual assignment was. But I was thinking about death. I mean, I got to the point of like the 3 things to take away, and I've just been living with a lot of death lately. So some of those, the 3 things that I'd like to share with people that regarding death is like we live and we die alone. Like it's a concept that I feel like, you're amongst people, you have relationships, but this life is for you and you live it and you die alone.
Mhm.
And another thing I've been just thinking about lately is that you live how you die, or rather you kind of die how you live. And I was talking to a friend about how she was panicking about retirement, and if you can create a community of people, and if you're somebody who can make relationships with people, like your old age and your eventual death will not, it won't be something terrible, even if you don't have a lot of money, let's say.
Mhm.
I mean, within reason, right?
Yeah.
And then something that my husband used to tell me when our son was sick, and our son passed away, but he used to always say to me, everything will be okay. I would be like, what? I don't want it to be okay. I want our son to live, but that's the truth. Like, everything will be okay.
All right.
I was thinking about you too when I was writing this, because my father also killed himself. So have experience with suicide and cancer and all kinds of death.
Definitely, I'm so sorry.
So,
Sending you a ton of love. And one of the things, if you don't, do you mind me coaching you a little bit on
no,
this
I
side?
don't mind.
Thank you. When I think about this topic is so, I mean, it's something that none of us escape. Like, it's inevitable for all of us that one, either we're dealing with it unexpectedly in life or it's our own, right? None of us get out alive, as they say. I would say when you're thinking about this topic for yourself, of presenting it, because I think it's such a good topic to discuss, go back to those questions for the audience. What do you think their biggest challenges are in this? And when you think about their biggest challenges and the knowledge that you can share in those areas, I think that's going to be where the magic 3 comes for you.
Mhm.
And it's more around, and that's just having maybe a few conversations with people and saying, hey, like, I know that you have dealt with a death in your family of cancer or suicide or unexpected. What has been the biggest challenges for you? And if you just ask 10 people and you see where those commonalities start showing up,
Mhm.
then you'll find, oh, I can speak on these ones because I have experience there and I have information that will help them tackle these. And so that way you'll find a little bit more succinct kind of funnel for the conversation, and where your magic will be able to heal hearts and just put people at ease. Because you obviously have stories for days that will communicate.
Unfortunately.
It will speak to others' hearts, though. I really feel that we go through certain things in life in order to be of service to others. Right. And so thank you for sharing that. Some of these issues. Well, could just give some love to each other. Madeline and I were talking about how the current world right now has seemed really bizarre. So it has been fascinating to uh, move through massive burnout with each other, right? Just, whew, we're going. There we go. I would love if anybody has any questions. We have a couple minutes, and I know Madeline said, hey, make sure you save some time for questions. But if anyone has any quick questions before we just close out for the hour, I would love to continue to be of service. And you can write them in chat if you don't want to raise your hand. But Madeline, if you can be my human on the chat side and just pulling out any questions that you see. And if not, yes, burnout in the tax world is very real right now, 100%.
I have a question, to kick us off is identifying the opportunities that are a fit for you. I think that there's so many, women who want to be speaking more, but finding the opportunities to bring your story to the table sometimes feels out of reach. Do you have recommendations, Misty, in terms of how people can find speaking opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. To me, I feel like it's kind of twofold. One, understanding who you want to reach, right, is imperative. Like, do you want to reach peers and become that expert to your peers in a certain field, or do you want to reach potential clients? And sometimes it's both. Sometimes you want to be known as a thought leader in the profession. Sometimes you want to be like of service. So you build your funnel for your business in general. So once you know those things, it's a matter of like then going, okay, like Leslie Shiner is phenomenal at it. Jeannie Whitehouse, they have very specific niches. I mean, Leslie Shiner, for those of you who do not know her, she's in the construction world, but she's a CPA. And so she literally, no joke, speaks at like Concrete World, which is a conference all about concrete. When you find what your niche is, really just Googling those like conferences for construction or conferences for sales experts or whatever it is for salt, right? You're going to be obviously looking at, that's a very specific niche to be speaking in. And so looking for conferences that tackle that. You have to have a media kit though. I will give a huge hey, it used to be a one sheeter for speakers to just submit one sheet. That went away years ago. So don't create a one sheet if you're wanting to be a speaker, because all of us that are booking speakers then have to go do more work. So I recommend a media kit, and I can send an example of my media kit. But the media kit has, your bio in short and long forms. It has links to any videos that you have. It has links to podcast experiences, whatever it is. So the person can vet you if they don't know you. Because if I didn't know somebody, what I'm going to do is after I get their one pager, which is typically what they send me, I then have to go look at all of their social profiles to see like how they show up, whether they're the expert that I need, like see if there's any videos on YouTube, and it creates a lot more work on my end to be able to go do the research. So have that in preparation, a media kit, and then figure out the who you want to target, and then submit. They almost always have a call for papers. Almost every conference does that, or just get to know people that book speakers. And I just got asked for 26 speakers for one of the speaker agents that I work with. She goes, I need 26 speakers for next year. Who do you have? I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, the other one that's been helpful for me too is joining the newsletters of conferences that I hope to speak at in the future, because that's usually where I've seen people put out their call for papers first, is in their newsletter. So that way, rather than having to proactively seek them out, it's like they start marketing to me, okay, we're going to be opening this up, and then I have time to prepare in advance to put something together.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's for that, it's really creating these go-to topics too. I'm not a big proponent in having one topic that you speak on all of the time, because as a person that booked speakers, what I didn't like is, oh, you've done this at 4 other places. That doesn't make my event unique. And they've already seen this. And so my job as an event coordinator is to bring in audience. If it's a topic that's been done everywhere else, then it doesn't make mine unique. And so some of my, I'll put in quotes, competitors teach to only have one keynote, and that's your keynote for life. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't think you've ever hired speakers, because I wouldn't like that. Like, I've sent keynote people back there like, oh, here's my speech. And I'm like, I've seen you do this 3 times. Like, you have to send me something else. I know you have another story in you. We all, like I said at the beginning, we all have so much wisdom and knowledge and experiences. And women, please, like, I know that anxiety exists. If that is a big hurdle for you, please reach out to me. Let me help you. I know that we need to step up to the mic more, because when I was booking speakers, 400 people would submit, 30 would be women, and 2 would be people of color. We are not taking our opportunities, and every single one of you can fill 50 minutes. No problem. And if it is the anxiety that's holding you back, if it's the not understanding how to deliver, if it is just overall like needing some sort of structure so you can get from point A to Z, that is my life. That is what I'm here for. I want to pass you the mic and help you succeed in this moment, because you look up on Google and you go, hey, top speakers, out of the top 20, there's only 3 women. And nobody's going to pass it to us. We have to take it and say, we know we deserve it. It's our time to step up and go, hey, I have value to bring to the table.
Thank you, Misty. This is hugely helpful. I really, really appreciate it. The email finally did come through, so I'll send all of you that process from Misty. I know we're at the hour and I want to honor that, but if anyone wants to share a big takeaway, I just would love to go around. That's kind of how we wrap things up around here. So Megan, you want to go first? Any big takeaways that landed for you?
No.
No. Brain is spinning because it's 10:15.
It's 10:15. I wish that I had something big and profound and wonderful to say. I always appreciate getting to hear Misty anytime I get to hear her. It's I wish that there was more theater put into things. I grew up backstage. My mom has her master's in stage management, and Angela Lansbury carried me around on set. Tori the Sea Lion was my buddy as a child. That was the 4-minute met at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Like, it's built into me. And I wish that more people would bring that in. It's something that needs to be there.
Agreed. I like my stuff is so theater. Like, I love it because we're creating experiences, right? It's not just sharing our knowledge, but how do we create that experience for humans to just learn and have fun and enjoy? But yeah, I love it. I love that Angela Lansbury moved around. That has to be part of one of your presentations. Like, we need to work that in somewhere.
I love those.
Baby, I was it.
Does anyone else have a takeaway they want to share? I know a couple have had to run already, but Melissa, Cicely, Mika, anything, Shannon? Yeah.
Oh, my biggest takeaway is that I need to do something with my boring wall behind me.
I know, Misty is fantastic.
It's amazing. I'm just excited. I'm so new to this whole concept, but I'm excited, and I think I want to create some videos to start with, and I think this will be very helpful for me. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited. Please tag me if you put them somewhere so I can just
I will.
cheer you on. All right. I love it. I love it. I'm so excited.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
Oh, go ahead, Maneth.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Cecily. Thank you so much, Misty. I've heard you speak before. You were at the Taking Your Firm virtual conference as well, and you actually spoke about how to make your background interesting in the Zoom, I think, and that was pretty awesome. It was always nice talking to you, and I will reach out to you about my anxiety if you don't mind. But yeah, today really, really helped me. Thank you so much, and thank you, Madeline.
Yeah.
For having Misty. Yeah.
Cecily?
I too am excited to see Misty anytime. Misty, the first time I saw you was at the Sleater conference. It was a long time ago in Las Vegas. And I saw you on stage and I was like, that woman's amazing. And I stopped you in the hall and I was like, you were really great up there. And you were like, thank you. I was like, I just couldn't believe they had like such a high quality kind of, I think you were emceeing it kind of.
Mhm.
And I was just really impressed because like you go to things like that, and like I want to be, entertained. I want to be engaged, right? But same as Shannon, I've been thinking about doing videos. I've been thinking about doing videos for like these very sad vendors who don't know how to submit invoices. Like, hey, this is how you do an invoice. Like, it's got to have a unique number. Hey, it's got to have, like, this is how you get paid. So that's something I've been thinking of. So yeah, I mean, I would love to speak to an audience, but I would have to find one too. So that's something else.
That's great. I love that. I love that, like stepping into videos. And that's the other thing that we didn't say, right? Is that you can go out and find like areas to speak, or you can create your own. Right. And by creating your own, then you're drawing those people to you that need to hear the message. And the people that do events will start seeing who you're drawing. So a great way to start.
Awesome. I love this. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Thank you, Misty, for bringing your wisdom and expertise. Like I said, I will share the resource with everyone in Slack, and then I'll also put this recording, we'll put it by the end of the day in our Google Drive folder. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. For those of you who got through tax deadline today, rest up, please. Take care of yourself. And we'll see y'all in a couple of weeks. All right. Bye-bye.